Hey all, I don't normally browse this subreddit, but have been on Reddit for 14 years now, currently on my throwaway, and I'm not sure where else to turn to for this. I know that this sub has a lot of eyes on it, and I hope I can gain some insight from you folks because I feel that I'm in an incredibly tough position right now. This is going to be a long one, so buckle in. I, 28-year-old male, proposed to my fiancée, 28-year-old female, last year in June, and our wedding is currently booked for October 5th of this year. The venue is already half paid for, $24,000 total, as well as our services like DJ, officiant, photographer, videographer, etc. Just tonight, through plenty of conversation spanning the last 2 months, it finally came out that my fiancé cheated on me a month and a half ago with an old flame that randomly popped back up in her life. Let me rewind things for a moment. My fiancé and I met just a little over 3 years ago during Infection 19 through mutual friends. We had gone to high school together, but never spoke to each other then. And one night during a virtual games night, we connected and I felt a strong urge to make a move, despite everything being locked down during the pandemic. I asked her if she wanted to go for a walk through our local park, since everything was shut down. And she told me she'd love to. Next thing I know, we really hit it off big time. And she essentially moves in the next day. We both connected on so many levels. The immediate attraction and connection was obvious. And from there, we would only see our relationship blossom and grow without any end in sight. Like any relationship, we've hit some bumps in the road along our journey. But 3+ years later, I can say that we've always grown from these bumps and everything always seems to only get better. These bumps being things like petty arguments, differences in opinion, that sort of thing. She's the only person who I've ever felt I can truly grow with, and always trust that things will be okay, especially since our communication is on a level that I've never known with anyone else. For all of these reasons, I've always felt that we're perfect for each other, and last year I proposed to her without a doubt in my mind. She said yes, and we were both over the moon. I should mention that she's incredibly close with her family, while I am not very close with mine. Since the beginning of our relationship, her family took me in and immediately made me feel like one of their own. I love her family almost as much as I love her, and I know they feel the same about me. After being engaged for almost a year, we're most of the way through wedding planning, and I thought that things were better than ever before. Until a few months ago, my fiancée brought up in late March that she was really nervous about the wedding. No biggie, I talked her through it like we always do, and she felt much better. She mentioned her worries were around entering the next chapter of life and saying goodbye to our early 20s and younger years. I assured her that this next chapter will be just as amazing, and she seemed to react well. A couple of days go by, and she's stressed out again, this time providing a few more details about feeling like we're entering the boring chapter. Again, no biggie, I talk her through this one, and she reacts well again. This goes on for about a couple more days, and I can tell she's getting cold feet a bit. We continue to talk about these things in open communication, and the conversation ends up directing towards some shortcomings in our relationship. For a few days, we work together to identify the root of these issues. She tells me she knows it's not my fault, but that she's feeling a lack of romance. We go over every minute detail, and while some things are valid, like each of us needing to make more of an effort, we identify that there's nothing else really missing, romance-wise. Eventually, after enough communication, she feels instantly better, and the worries go away. Cue the guilty era. My fiancé starts feeling better about everything, and keeps profusely apologizing for how she was acting, and how she's actually very excited to get married. Every time, I reassure her that it's fine. You got cold feet, that's perfectly normal, and I'm happy you're over it. But the apologizing continues for the better part of a month. At this point, I'm kind of feeling like something's up, so I provide a safe space to come clean and ask her what's really going on. She breaks down and explains that what she was feeling before about our relationship was very real. And a couple weeks into it, an old flame of hers reached out for the first time in over 3 years to see how things were going. She mentioned that the conversation was very appropriate, at first, until he started to come on to her, despite knowing she's now engaged. She told me, to her own guilt, this made her feel some excitement after having felt like that was something that was lacking in our own relationship. She then explains that she shut the conversation down immediately and that she's felt immense guilt ever since. I just appreciate her honesty. We talk through this like we do everything else and laugh about how it could have been so much worse. If only I knew. She mentioned to me a week later that she and her best friend have a Toronto day planned. We live outside of Toronto, and this is a very normal thing that they would do. I'm quite close with her best friend and thought nothing of it. She has her Toronto day with her friend and makes it back to me the next day. From here, things continue like normal. However, the guilty conscience never stops. My fiancée continues to profusely apologize about the time she was getting cold feet and talk to that guy. I keep reassuring her that it was okay and that we were able to work through it until I figure something's up. Again, I provide a safe space for her to tell me what's really happening, and she tells me she didn't just see her friend in Toronto. She went with her friend to meet up with this guy and to get closure. She explains that she and this guy had a complicated past and that him popping back up like that needed to be resolved. So she told her best friend, who advised against it at first, but decided to go with her so that nothing would happen. She explains this is why she's been so guilty and reassured me that nothing happened, but that the guilt of keeping this from me has been eating her alive. I'm hurt, but our communication has been solid to this point, and I'm just happy she found the courage to tell me. We go through it, but in the end, I feel we come out stronger. For weeks, our relationship only seems to improve, and our bond grows much stronger. At this point, there isn't a doubt in my mind that we'll have a beautiful future together. Cue more guilty behavior. Weeks of this continue, and eventually I lie. I tell her that I know the truth of what actually happened, and she has to tell me the events that really took place for us to proceed in our relationship. I was bluffing. She comes out with the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth. She tells me it wasn't just a conversation and her friend wasn't there. She went to his place in Toronto and stayed the night. They talked about where they left off and where she is now. One thing led to another, and they slept together. I'm mortified. And she goes on to explain that both of them felt absolutely terrible about it. She mentioned that they both agreed to never speak of it again, and both blocked each other entirely after saying goodbye for the last time. This is truly why she's felt so terribly guilty. After this conversation, I can tell she's told the full truth. The worst part is I can see just how remorseful she is, but it doesn't take away the hurt it's causing me. I kicked her out tonight. She's now at her mom's place, while I write this post in our own home. The thing is, after everything we've been through, I know she's telling the entire truth. I know she's truly remorseful, and that this was completely out of character for her. I know the only reason she lied was because she couldn't believe her own actions, and wanted to spare me from the pain. I know that she and this guy are done, and she could never see herself pursuing things further with him after everything that went down. I completely believe her story. We've talked for hours about it, and this is the woman I've known for 3+ years. Not that woman that ran around behind my back, but it still doesn't take away the pain I'm feeling. I still love her, and I do believe a future exists where we can work through this. But at the same time, I'm worried that things will never be the same again between us, no matter how much trust is regained. I worry that we'll never look at each other the same, and that the future we've always pictured together will forever be stained with this thing that lasted no more than a single day in Toronto. I feel there's so much on the line with ending things here. We have the wedding coming up, and I'll be losing her now, mine as well. Entire family whom I also love so much, in addition to the future I've always dreamed of. I haven't told anybody I know in real life yet. My mom is asleep, and I'm weighing the impact of telling those I know personally. I can only imagine she will need to fess up to her mother tonight, having been kicked out without her engagement ring. I'm laying awake here and weighing all of the options. Please help me by providing your perspective. Please let me know if you need any more information to form an opinion. I'm insanely lost right now. Update. Thank you everybody for reading this post and sharing your perspectives on the situation. I kind of figured that the majority of the replies would be telling me to run away without looking back. And while I don't necessarily believe this situation can be boiled down to it as black and white as that, I still appreciate everything that's been said. I can tell you guys care so greatly about my well-being, so thank you for that. I want you to also know that it's a position that I've thought about a lot too, and that it isn't falling on deaf ears. I should also clarify, this post wasn't my way of hearing only what I want to hear. that everything is going to be okay with a little work and communication. I appreciate those of you who have taken this perspective as well. Reading so many of the replies, there are honestly too many to read. It's really helped me gain a ton of outside perspective while also talking with people in my life about it. The first person I talked to about this was my mom. My dad passed some years ago, and she's always been the person I tell everything to. I thought for sure that when I brought this up, she'd say, "This is it. Cancel the wedding immediately. You two are done." But instead, she listened to everything I was saying and was very understanding of everything. Not that she's okay with any of this, but she knows what kind of relationship we have. And after discussing all of the details, she came to the conclusion that this is something that can be worked through if I can ever find it in myself to forgive her, and if she's completely willing to take all of the next steps to tackling this head on. She recommended that we have an honest conversation about absolutely every part of it, that I will need to read every single text between her and him. We should go to couples counseling. We will both need to make sure this guy is entirely out of the picture, and that my fiancé will also need a psychological evaluation. Note, the psychological evaluation isn't something new either. It's something that my fiancé and I have talked about before, as it has always been apparent that she has some underlying mental health issues which make her anxious and impulsive. I called my fiancée last night, who was completely beside herself, and didn't promise anything in regards to working through this, but told her that we will need to meet at some point to cover some of the points above. She's completely agreed to all of it, and I understand that in her position, she will say anything to keep us together. But I can tell she at least wants to help me gain closure on this situation, no matter which way it goes. She's told her mother and best friends what she did, and is completely ready to own this as her cross to bear. Last night on our call, she came out with everything and said she would like me to read all of the texts, telling me the worst of them. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I haven't even been able to read them yet, but she's told me what she believes is the worst of the worst. And some of them are incredibly tough pills to swallow. At this point, the things they texted each other are actually a lot worse than the fact that they slept together. From here, I think we're going to take some more space, and I'm going to do a lot of soul searching before we meet again about this. My takeaway from our conversation last night is that she's done with this guy for good now, and that I'll see the texts that prove it on top of the fact that she now has her immediate family holding her accountable for it. I know that this doesn't completely erase the possibility of them doing this again, and I'm going to be digesting what this actually means for a while. I plan on updating this post again when there's more to share, but for now, thank you everybody for the overwhelming show of support and care. Please don't think I'm just going to cave and act like we can get through this. This is going to be the most important decision of my life to this point, and I promise I would just cut all contact right now if I truly didn't believe there was anything worth salvaging. I'll talk to you guys soon. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is the time in the relationship where you are supposed to be most in love, and yet she had intimate relations with another guy. No mitigating circumstances that I can see. She is not the one for you. I'm sensing you feel this whole thing has an inertia, and you can't stop the relationship. This is wrong, you absolutely can, and you should. Comment 2. I don't even think she wants this marriage. This was sabotage. She had cold feet and did something, where she knew that you wouldn't marry her. All of this was planned and done consciously. Please believe her. She doesn't want you. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. Here's what went down this past week. So, after the whole confession and kicking her out, I was a wreck, but I had to keep moving, right? I started by canceling the wedding plans, the venue, the DJ, all of it. Lost a good chunk of change, but what's money compared to this betrayal? I was just starting to get my head on straight when her brother shows up at my door. He's fuming, saying I've got it all wrong, that his sister wouldn't do this. He's yelling, I'm yelling, it's a scene. Then he drops a bombshell. Turns out my fiancé's old flame has a history of this stuff. He's been manipulating women, my fiancé included, and her brother has proof. Texts, emails, the works. He's been threatening her, saying he'd wreck her life if she didn't come see him that night in Toronto. I'm floored. I mean, it doesn't excuse what she did, but it adds a layer, you know? I'm seeing red, thinking about this guy messing with her, with us. But I'm also feeling this twist in my gut because, despite everything, part of me still cares about her. Her brother leaves, and I'm left with this mess of feelings. I don't know what to do with the info he gave me. I sit on it for a day, then two. I'm not eating right, not sleeping. It's like I'm walking through a fog. Then, her best friend comes over. She's in tears, apologizing for not stopping her that day, for not being a better friend. She tells me my fiance's been a wreck at her mom's, not eating, not sleeping, just crying all the time. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with that? Forgive her? Just like that? But the friend doesn't stop there. She tells me my fiance's been going to therapy like every day since it happened. She's been digging into why she did it, why she let that guy back into her life. And she's been writing me letters, one for each day we've been apart, but she's been too scared to send them. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. But the friend leaves the letters, and after she's gone, curiosity gets the better of me. I read them. Every single one is like a punch to the gut. My fiance's pouring her heart out, all her fears, her regrets. She's taking full responsibility, not blaming the guy or the manipulation. She's just raw. I spend the next few days in a daze. I'm angry, hurt, but I'm also seeing this human side of her, this broken side. And it's messing with me because that's the woman I fell in love with, not the one who cheated. I finally decide to meet her. We sit down in a park, neutral ground. She's a mess, but she's also strong in a way I haven't seen before. She's done the work, you can tell. She's not asking for forgiveness, not really. She's just asking for me to understand. We talk for hours. It's hard, probably the hardest conversation I've ever had. But by the end of it, I can see she's changed. Not enough to take her back, not yet, but enough to give me pause. I tell her we're done for now. I need space, time to figure out who I am without her. She understands. She doesn't fight it. She just nods, tears streaming down her face, and she tells me she'll wait for as long as it takes, even if it's forever. I walk away from that park feeling lighter than I have in weeks. Not because I've forgiven her, but because I've seen her for who she is, flaws and all. And I've seen myself too. I'm not ready to decide anything about us, but I'm ready to start healing. That's where I'm at now. Healing. Thanks for reading. I'll update you when there's more to say. Am I the idiot for dumping my boyfriend after he kept bringing up my chest size? I've 19-year-old female, been with my boyfriend, 18-year-old male for over a year. Early this year, he told me out of the blue on call that he wished my breasts were bigger. I'm a 32 AA/28B. It really hurt me, and I cried all night afterward. I told him about how I felt the next day, and he was very apologetic. Prior to this incident, he had always kind of been insinuating that he wished they were bigger. He just never directly told me. I would pick up on it, though, and chipped away at my self-esteem. Before our relationship, I was very proud of my small chest. Now I feel very ashamed and like I'm not a woman. It's been months since his comment, and I still think about him wishing my body were different every day. He's still apologetic and told me he doesn't want me to change myself, and it was silly to have thought that, but I asked him today how much he preferred bigger breasts over my body, and he said he slightly prefers them over mine. He likes mine, but he just prefers bigger breasts. That's fine. Everyone has preferences. But I want to be my partner's number one, the body type they prefer the most. It unalives me, knowing he's my number one, but I'm not his. Yes, it's nice that he's not being shallow and is choosing personality over looks, but I don't want to be someone's compromise. I am demisexual, and I love everything about my boyfriend. His personality, his quirks, his interests, his face, and his body. I've always wanted a relationship where we're both obsessed with each other, where we put each other on a pedestal, not in the unhealthy way, and practically worship each other again, not in an unhealthy way. I don't want to be someone's compromise. It makes participating in sexy time incredibly difficult. When he initiates intimacy, I feel kind of nauseous, sick, and like there's a weight on my chest, har, knowing he wished my breasts were bigger, plus knowing he prefers bigger breasts over mine. Any advice or thoughts would be very appreciated. I ask that people not comment a simple, just break up, as I would rather not and instead would like to know how to move past this. I apologize if this post doesn't fit the sub. Edit. Please no more DMs. No one was respecting my request for no non-constructive DMs. I am monogamous. Thank you. Edit 2. Here's some clarification that I previously made in comments to people, but they seem to be buried now. My boyfriend told me he wished my breasts were bigger because he was conflicted guilty over feeling that way. And he believes in the importance of communication in relationships. He realizes now that it was a mistake to have ever told me that, and it should have stayed an inside thought. The issue is that the comment still haunts me daily, and his current stance on preferring bigger-chested women slightly over me makes me sad. We communicate about this conflict regularly, with me telling him my feelings and him getting sad about it, which I don't want. And our conversations always end in him saying, "What should I do?" and me saying, "I don't know." My self-esteem being chipped away before the comment was because he'd insinuate that he wished they were bigger, but I never really addressed it until the day after his most impactful comment. Things he'd playfully say before, "Do you think your breasts will get bigger when you get pregnant?" And, "Oh, if you get fat, does that mean your breasts will grow too? Maybe I should start feeding you more LOL." He's not manipulative, just dense sometimes. He hasn't made any more comments since. I'm the one who has trouble moving past it. People have been commenting, "Just move on." The main purpose of this post was to ask how I can effectively move on, or what we should do as a couple. Thank you for all the well-meaning advice and thoughts. Please no more just break up comments or comments suggesting surgery or pills to change my body, though. And no, he said he wouldn't care if I told him that I wished his weenie were bigger. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Look, I am small-chested and it has been a struggle my whole life. It is actually me that judges me. I am 47 years old. I have had many boyfriends, but I will tell you not one has said anything about my chest. I am sorry he said what he said. I know you do not want to break up, but it is now unhealthy for you to stay. He needs to see that the damage has been done. He has to take accountability for what he said in hopes that he realizes and understands how words can hurt. And maybe he won't, but that is not for you to fix. Please think about your mental health now. You are young and you will find the right one that loves everything about you. Comment 2. There's no reason to say anything about this unless he wants to hurt you or get you to get surgery. Don't. Get a better boyfriend who, A, knows better than to say hurtful things about their girlfriend's body. B, is absolutely fine with it, or C, especially appreciates small breasts and even favors them. There are men out there who are one or more of those things. You can't fault someone for their body preferences, but you can fault them for being a cruel shoothead about them. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So, things went from bad to worse. Remember how I said my boyfriend was apologetic about his comments on my body? Well, he decided to throw a surprise party for me to make up for everything. Sounds sweet, right? Wrong. He invited all our friends, and somehow, the topic of body image came up. One of our friends, who had too much to drink, blurted out that my boyfriend had been discussing my chest size with him, in front of everyone. I was mortified. The room went silent. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for my reaction. I wanted to disappear. My boyfriend tried to explain, but what could he say? That he hadn't meant for it to come out? That it was just guy talk? It didn't matter. The damage was done. I left the party early and he didn't stop me. The next day, he showed up at my place with flowers and apologies, but I couldn't even look at him. I told him we needed a break. He didn't argue and just nodded and left. I felt a mix of relief and dread. Was this the beginning of the end? But then, things took an unexpected turn. His mom called me. She was always kind to me and I couldn't just hang up on her. She told me she heard about the party and wanted to apologize on behalf of her son. She shared stories of her own insecurities and how she overcame them. It was comforting, but it also made me realize that this wasn't just about me and my boyfriend. It was about a pattern of behavior that he might have picked up from somewhere. It didn't excuse his actions, but it gave me a new perspective. I spent the next couple of days reflecting on everything. I realized that I didn't want to be with someone who made me feel less than. I deserved better. So, I made a decision. I called him and told him it was over. He tried to argue, to promise he'd change, but I was firm. I needed to stand up for myself. After we hung up, I felt a strange sense of calm. It was over. I was free from the constant worry and self-doubt. I could start to rebuild my self-esteem without his shadow looming over me. I started going to therapy, something I should have done a long time ago. It's been helping. I'm learning to love myself again, to see my worth. It's not easy, but I'm getting there, one day at a time. And as for my ex, well, I heard from a friend that he's been going to therapy too. Maybe he's finally realizing the impact of his words. I hope he learns from this, I really do. But that's his journey, not mine. I'm focused on moving forward, on healing. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for feeling excluded by my fiancé's family, who speak only their native language? At gatherings, context. I am from an English-speaking country, and my fiancé is Scandinavian. I speak only English. Fiancé and his family speak English fluently as a second language. Fiancé and I dated for 5 years and recently became engaged. I learned his language for about 2 years through a mix of Duolingo and in-person classes. I can comprehend a basic conversation, but I find it very difficult to articulate myself when speaking. I stopped actively learning the language when my fiancé moved to my country over 3 years ago, where we now live together and speak English 100% of the time. An ongoing issue has been that whenever we visit my fiancé's family in their country, they all speak in their language together despite their ability to fluently speak English. This means I am often left out of conversations, as I quickly lose the flow and end up not contributing. It is completely understandable that they speak in their native language, but we have friends and other family in the country that will switch between the two, or speak just in English if I'm there. I have spoken to my fiancé about this many times, and suggested that I say when I don't understand, but he says that it would be weird to ask his family to speak in English. So, out of politeness, I have never outright asked for them to switch to English. My fiancé has also said that if the conversation doesn't involve something that happened to me, then it doesn't need to be in English. Long story short, whenever I see my fiancé's family, all they hear from me are single-sentence answers in their language, or I speak in English when I have understood more of the topic, to the main issue. On our most recent visit to his family, my future father-in-law, Phil, male, 59, angrily told me, in English, that he feels he doesn't know me, and that he wants to protect his son from me because I never speak and seem distracted. He made me look him in the eye and tell him I loved his son. This all happened with my fiancé present. I explained that the reason I'm so quiet is because I'm trying to follow along, and I'm constantly having to translate in my head. I cannot contribute as much as I would like to, because the conversation moves so quickly, and it is difficult for me to keep track. Father-in-law said that because I had taken language classes, I could understand what's being said, and that I should contribute more. I explained that I can't understand enough of the conversation to be able to contribute, although I admitted I could have pointed out if I had lost track. Father-in-law would not listen, and kept repeating that he doesn't know me, and that he wants to protect his son. I am upset and confused that father-in-law has never brought this up before now, and I am torn as to whether I should have tried harder to learn my fiancé's language. I am unsure what to do going forward. Would it be fair of me to ask his family to speak English, at least some of the time, so that I can contribute fully? Edit to add. My fiancé did stand up for me during the outburst with his father, and told him to shut the frick up and listen to me, that I can't understand Danish fully. So how should I be able to contribute, etc.? I have had my fiancé's support over the years, and he has tried to initiate conversations in English, but his family's insistence on responding in Danish has made it difficult. My fiancé has been guilty of just replying in Danish and letting the conversation go on in Danish. But now that we've spoken about that, we have agreed to both push harder for the conversations to be initiated in English, and for my fiancé to speak a lot less Danish back to get the point across more. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your fiancé is failing you badly. He thinks it would be weirder to ask his family to speak a shared language than for you to constantly feel awkward and left out. Why did he not stand up for you when his father was accusing you of not loving him? Why do your feelings and ability to connect with his family mean so little to him? His dad humiliated you and he did what exactly? This isn't a language issue, it's a respect issue. Someone who respects you would either express the need for a language you understand to be spoken or translate for you, and they would certainly not allow their family to blatantly disrespect you right in front of them. All of these people sound rude as hell. Who speaks a language they know someone present doesn't speak, and then blames them for not speaking? You would be entirely fair to ask them to speak English, but the bigger problem is that your fiancé should have been doing that all along and would rather you be excluded than do so. Do with that what you will. Comment 2. Wow. As someone who lived in another country for the majority of my 20s, I cannot tell you how often I had to explain to family and friends back home that living there would not magically make me fluent. Learning new languages is hard. Some people have more of a knack for it than others, and it's incredibly ignorant and insensitive of your father-in-law to attack you like this, and publicly no less. I have to ask, what the heck did your fiancé do? Did he not defend you at all? I would be livid if I had married someone from where I was living, and my parents said something like this to them. It's so embarrassingly ignorant and rude. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So, things have been tense since the last time I talked about the language barrier with my fiancé's family. We thought we had a plan, but it's like everything just blew up in our faces. My fiancé and I agreed he'd speak less Danish, and we'd both push for more English to help me out. But it's like his family didn't get the memo, or they just didn't care. We went to his sister's birthday party, and it was like I was invisible. Everyone was chatting in Danish, laughing and having a good time, and there I was just nodding and smiling like a fool. I tried to jump in with my broken Danish, but it was like talking to a wall. My fiancé did try to switch to English a few times, but it just didn't stick. Then the bomb dropped. My fiancé's cousin, who's always been kind of competitive with him, announced he's getting married too. And guess what? His fiancé is Danish. Suddenly, it was like I was the odd one out, even more than before. They were all excited, asking her all sorts of questions, and I just sat there feeling like a stranger. I was already feeling low, but then my fiancé's mom pulled me aside. She said she was worried about me not fitting in, and that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. That stung. I've been trying, but it's like they expect me to be fluent overnight. The worst part? My fiancé overheard and got into a huge fight with his mom. He told her she was being unfair and that they were all making it harder for me. It was a mess. Everyone was upset, and the party pretty much ended right there. After that disaster, we had a serious talk. My fiancé said maybe we should move the wedding date, give me more time to learn Danish. But that felt like giving up, like admitting I wasn't good enough. We decided to stick to the plan, but I could tell he was worried. We tried to make things right, invited his family over for dinner, just us. I even cooked some traditional Danish dishes to show I was trying to embrace their culture. It started off okay, but then his uncle made a joke in Danish, and everyone laughed except me. I asked what was funny, and there was this awkward silence before someone finally explained it in English. It was like they suddenly remembered I was there. The tension was thick. You could cut it with a knife. My fiancé was translating back and forth, but it was exhausting for him, and I could see he was getting frustrated. It was supposed to be a nice evening, but it felt like we were all just pretending. Then, out of nowhere, my fiancé's brother said something that made my blood boil. He suggested that maybe if I couldn't learn Danish, I wasn't the right match for their family. That was it for me. I lost it. I told them how hard I've been trying, how isolated I felt, and that I loved their son and brother, and that should be enough. It was like a dam broke. Everyone started talking at once, in English and Danish, and it was chaos. My fiancé was trying to calm everyone down, but it was no use. His brother stormed out, and the rest of the family followed soon after. Now, we're left picking up the pieces. My fiancé and I are solid, but it's like there's this huge rift between me and his family. I'm not sure how we'll fix it, if we even can. It's like everything we've been trying to build just crumbled in one night. Thanks for reading this far. It's been rough, but I had to get it off my chest. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.